Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our Kiali community meeting. This is the second sprint of the year, and we are going to release the next Monday, Kiali 2.22. So this is our activity stats for this sprint. As you can see, as always, we have had more activity in the Kiali server repo with around 75 issues done. Some others are still in progress. And as well, you can see some activity in the OpenShift Service Mesh plugin. So we can start with our highlights for this sprint. We have a video. Hopefully it starts. Okay. And well, we are pleased to announce the Kiali MCP Server implementation with support for Kubernetes and OpenShift. But what is an MCP server? So this stands for Model Context Protocol, and it's a tool to connect LLMs with real data provided by the MCP, which in this case is the data from the mesh provided by Kiali. So this will allow us to configure LLM-powered applications like Claude or Cursor with the Kiali MCP to help us analyze our mesh, as it provides tools for inspecting services, traffic, metrics, or traces. The LLM understands natural language and uses the query to request information from the MCP server using the available tools. And the tools retrieve the relevant data for Kiali and returns them in a structured format that allows the LLM to analyze the real state of the mesh and also provide detailed response. And all of this without having to provide direct access to the LLM to the cluster. So these are the steps if you want to set up this MCP server. You can see the code, which is in the Kubernetes MCP server repository for Kubernetes, and also for OpenShift in the OpenShift MCP server. And the first thing we need to do will be to create an MCP configuration file. This is a TOML file. And we need to set up the tools from the repo that we want to use, in this case, the Kiali and also the core for the basic Kubernetes functionality. We can also change the read-only mode to true. In case this is false, Kiali is also able to create or remove Istio configuration in case we are requesting it. And the other important setup is the Kiali URL that is going to provide this information to Kiali. Next thing to do is we set up the MCP configuration in our IDI or in cloud, for example. So we create a JSON file with the command npx. We need to specify the arguments. In this case, is the Kubernetes MCP server with the latest version. And for the configuration, we will use the file created previously. In that case, is the MCP viewer config.toml. And well, this is another new feature in this release, that is the Kiali Chatbot. The Kiali Chatbot is a new widget in Kiali that can be connected to OpenAI or also Google LLM provider, and can work with models that support tool calling in order to communicate to the MCP server. Kiali itself exposes a subset of these MCP tools that we have seen before and return detailed information about our mesh, so we can receive the response based on our real mesh data in the Kiali chat. This information is very valuable to analyze our mesh, but it can also perform actions like navigate into another page, and it can also create Istio configurations if we said that if we allow it, and also provide related documentation from Istio or Kiali.io. And the chatbot is a feature that is disabled by default and is released as a dev preview. So it is intended for being tested and receive feedback. And to enable it, it is done under in the Kiali CR. there is a new chat AI section where we need to specify the provider, the model, and also a valid API key. So for this feature, the next feature, I'm going to pass the mic to Jay.
Thanks, Yuzune. So I want to talk a little bit about a relatively major change going into 2.22, which we're calling health precompute and health status caching on the back end. So basically, the backstory here is, if you've been following what we've been doing in Kiali for the last several releases, we are trying to address performance and scale, because as Istio continues to grow in popularity and matures, meshes are getting bigger and bigger, and Kiali needs to keep up with that. And we know that there's been issues with the rendering times of various pages. Just in the last release of Kiali, we introduced graph caching, which is hopefully already getting used out there to help render your graph much more quickly than it was before. The other pages, like the list pages for workloads, services, apps, and also your landing page, which is the overview page, they have often suffered slow response or slow rendering due to the fact that the health information, which is scattered throughout the cards on overview or the list pages, like you can see in the screenshot here on the left side in that column with the basically telling you, is this service or is this workload healthy, unhealthy, degraded? That takes a lot of computation because it includes metric information, workload to pod information, and so forth. What we've done is two things. We've moved all of that calculation to the back end, as opposed to having it just sort of distributed between the back end and the front end. And we're also going to do an automatic refresh of that information in the background, cache it, and serve this information up from cache, which should increase the rendering, decrease the rendering times for all those pages by quite a lot. It will potentially use up a bit more resources on the back end, so keep an eye out for that. If it's something that is an issue, let us know, and we'll continue to work on things. But probably the biggest change in the UI resulting from this is that you're used to having a duration dropdown in your list pages and on the overview, which where you could say, hey, I want to see this for the last 1 minute. I want to see this for the last 5 or 10 minutes. That sort of thing doesn't really do well when you're computing everything in advance. So the change here is that you now have a fixed duration, one fixed duration for health, which will default to the last 5 minutes, but it is configurable in the Kiali CR. And you won't see that drop down on those pages. Things like the graph page and certainly the detail pages, once you've drilled down into a specific workload or service, for example, those pages still have your duration drop down. You'll always be able to configure the time range that you're interested in when you're on those pages. And yeah, so let us know. Always hit us up on Slack with any feedback. It's a pretty big change, so we'd really like to know how people are doing with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. And yeah, the next feature is the SPIRE support in Kiali. To put you a bit in context, SPIRE is a SPIFE implementation that issues and manages cryptographic identities for services in a network. And Istio uses SPIFE IDs by itself, and this information can be seen already in the Kiali traffic graph. But when SPIRE is used as well, a new card in the detailed pages is going to be shown, including when a workload, service, or application is using it, and also showing related information, like, for example, the labels that you can see there in the workload detail page. And let's go with other notable changes for this sprint. One is related with ambient. So in Istio ambient, the traces were used to be created by the waypoint proxy, and the service name was the waypoint proxy itself. So we made some changes in Kiali to be able to correlate these waypoint traces with the actual service, which is related to that traces, but it changes from Istio 1.28, and now the traces are being created from the actual service name. So we made a change to support this, and also we have created a new setting in Kiali, which is use a waypoint name for tracing, and this will allow us to have compatibility in case you are using previous Istio versions for Istio Ambient. Another change is that there is support now for OpenID authentication in OpenShift that was not supported, just OpenShift and token. There is now a mock server that is going to be very helpful for the front-end development, where you don't have to start the backend service, and it's going to be especially useful when we are working with complex environments, like, for example, multi-cluster, that sometimes they are hard to set just for development. There is a new change in the Helm charts to support multiple CA certificates on OpenShift when using custom CI bundles. Related to performance, there is another improvement that now the workload validations are returned from the information where it's caged. So we don't have to wait a lot for these validations to happen, especially in large environments with many workloads. They were several dependency upgrades related to security and related to the migration to Patternfly 6. We already have missing some components like the data and time that were migrated in this version. Related to the bug fixes, there is a bug fix for an issue in the operator with the root cause establishing the reconcile period to 0 seconds, which was not defined in the Ansible operator SDK, and fall back to the default that was 10 hours, which is not happening anymore. And there is a fix with the wizard's navigation after the Patternfly 6 migration. And these are the epics in progress for the next sprint. Already in this sprint, we are putting a lot of effort in the redesign of the new overview page, which we expected to release soon. They were like some work related to the validation with the ambient in Istio 1.29 support, especially in multi-cluster environments. The work continues for the offline Kiali, and we also are going to be working in improvements for this AI chatbot. So I'm going to stop the recording for the community discussion, and thank you for the attendance.